Welcome. Oh, there we go.
There we go.
Got it.
Okay.
Okay, welcome. So we are going to talk about managing emotion through validation. And I'm Lisa Mulvihill. I'm a psych services consultant with the school board. I'll let Jessie.
Yeah, and I'm Jessie Cook. I'm a resident in psychology at the school board working with Lisa. So I'm finishing the last year of my PhD right now in psychology.
Yeah, so please jot down your questions and then just hold them to the end. And like I said, then we'll stop the recording so we can have a little chit chat. So we just want to let you know that, we can't get into personal examples and things like that, but the purpose of this is to offer some evidence-based information, general education that you can try out with your kiddos. And at the end, we're also going to provide a slide with some resources on it. If you really think this would be awesome for your kiddos or your friends or your partner, then you can check those out as well.
Great. So today we'll talk about learning about what validation actually is, why we use it to validate emotions, and then just some strategies about how to actually go about validating emotions rather than validating behavior.
Okay, so what validation is a way to acknowledge a person's emotions, making people realize they're useful and they're important. And the other thing is, when your child's really distraught, you want to meet them where they're at. Okay, and later I'm going to give an example of how I didn't do that with my own child. And I talk about this all the time. It's hard to do sometimes, but meeting your child where they're at in that emotional state, not trying to fix things right away, which I also am not so great at. You want to fix things, right? It's hard to see your kids distraught. And then just leaning into the emotion. And I should mention Adele LaFrance, one of her websites, Emotion Focused Family Therapy, is one of the resources we share. And a lot of this is based on her work. So we should give credit where credit's due. But she talks a lot about leaning into that emotion, being there with your kiddos and just sitting with it. And it can be really hard and it takes some practice for sure.
Yeah, so and thinking about some reasons why we validate emotions, I think a big one for a lot of parents is really to help connect with our kids by helping to acknowledge the emotions that they're having are valid and okay. We're not only ensuring their safety, but we're also helping them to develop some emotional skills that they need to be successful as adults. So things like understanding what they feel and why they feel that way and connecting it to the situations that are maybe causing some of those emotions too. So some things that, some examples of emotions or validation in that situation are things like, I understand your experiences. It makes sense to me that you feel that way. And it also helps kids understand that emotions are okay. It's okay to feel lots of different things because emotions give us information. They tell us things about what's going on around us. And they usually direct us in different ways to know how to act in certain situations too. And so after validating your child's emotion, it often opens up a conversation where you can help support them in coping with those emotions, which we sometimes call regulating emotions. And it also frees up some energy and time to do things like problem solve, offer comfort where your child can actually receive that comfort. And provide different ways of support too. And so a nice thing about validation is that it really does two things we want to do as parents. It offers your child warmth and care that we all want to give to our kids, while also providing some structure too, in terms of how we can help support our kids in managing our emotions overall.
Yeah, and so this is taken right from Dr. LaFrance's work, Emotion Focused School Support. And there's an elevator there. So why is there an elevator? So it's kind of a way to visualize, if you think about emotions as going up and down like an elevator, if your child's on the top floor and they are really upset, really angry, really having a hard time, you need something to bring that elevator back down in order for them to be able to get their thinking brain back online. And so bringing that elevator back down to the main floor so that you can have a conversation. Okay. We're going to talk about a really specific script you can use that talks about 3 becauses. Okay. So you're going to name the emotion, and then you're going to provide 3 reasons why you think your child feels that way. Then the redirection, reassurance, and reminders, or whatever they need. Okay, so think about, my child's really up here. I need to do something quickly. And this can take like a minute or less to bring them down. Okay, and we'll get to the script, but we just want to set it up so you can understand why. And if you get really into this, Dr. LaFrance will talk about her consultation with a neuropsychologist, and they talked about, it takes 3 becauses to sort of click, for lack of a better expression. So if you're really interested, like I said, you can delve into some of her work. It's really interesting.
And one of the reasons too why we try to change the but with because is because oftentimes we'll say, I understand, you're feeling really upset, but, we got to get to school, or we got to do this. And at that point, we're jumping to fixing the problem too soon. And so sometimes when we move too soon to fixing the problem, our kids aren't ready to really hear and get that support yet. They still need to be validated first before they can get to that reasoning part.
For sure. And someone once said to me, if you say but, it kind of erases everything that came before the but, right? So all they hear is, but get to school, but get your presentation done, but get your homework done. So we want to avoid that but and turn it into because. Thanks, Jessie.
Yeah. So just like Lisa said, there's just this kind of really simple script that you can use and also make your own too, to help validate emotion. You're going to start out by saying, I understand, I can imagine, it makes sense why you would feel whatever emotion your child's feeling. And so when you're doing that, you're not overly expressing that you understand the way your child feels, but you're also labeling that emotion for them. And so especially with young kids, that can be really helpful when they're still learning what they're feeling and why they're feeling that way. And so after you say, I understand or I imagine why you would feel this way, you're going to give them 3 reasons why it makes sense that they feel this way. So, it makes sense that you feel really upset because. And we're going to work with an example in the next slide. But just like Lisa said, neuroscience really shows us that, one because or one explanation of why a kid's feeling that way isn't always enough, right? They need to hear a couple reasons to really get the sense that you understand what they're feeling and why they're feeling that way.
At the same time, as you're learning this, don't panic if you're in the moment and you can only think of one because, it's going to take some time for you to learn this. And sometimes we can be quick on our feet and even rephrase one reason that's similar to the other.
Yeah.
Yes, we will. We can put a link in maybe for the slides. We'll think about how to do that for sure. Thanks, Sam. So yes, so don't panic. This is a skill you're going to hopefully practice and get better at it, but that's where you want to go. That's the ideal one, is the 3 becauses.
And a lot of people, I think, get worried that by validating an emotion, it's kind of going to open the floodgates. Maybe your child's going to get even more upset. Maybe it's going to take a lot of time to have a conversation about that. But what a lot of people have found is that just by taking the time, to take the minute it takes to validate an emotion, it can actually help a child to feel really understood. And so instead of getting upset that they're not feeling understood or they're feeling invalidated, you can really focus on the problem that they're experiencing instead of, on top of that, dealing with the feeling invalidated piece too.
We had a question there in the chat about, can you use this in grades like 1 to 5? Absolutely. There's a great video or a little webinar, I think, that one of Adele LaFrance's colleagues does on the website, the Mental Health Foundation's one, I think. And she does one I think with a toddler who's angry. So, I mean, obviously you might change your words or your phrasing a little bit for younger kiddos, but the great thing about this is that it can work with adults, partners, teenagers, little kids. And I just missed, let me just go back to the chat for a sec. I don't know. I'm maybe we'll talk about your question at the end. I'm not sure about a major classroom. We can sort of put that in context a little bit, but definitely kids of all ages, adults, whatever. It can be quite successful even with yourself. You can validate how you're feeling if you've had a bad day.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's use this example because presentations tend to be quite anxiety provoking, ironically. So your teenage girl, boy, whatever, whoever they identify says to you, I have to do a presentation. I'm the worst presenter in the world. I suck. Okay. That's hard to hear from our kids, right? You don't want your kids to feel like they're the worst or they aren't good at something. So I'm going to give you a little example of what I did when my son came to me, and then I'm going to give you an example. Maybe Jesse can give you an example of what might work better. So when my son was finishing up high school, which I think is a very difficult time, and figure out what he wanted to do. And he came to me, he said, I'm pretty stressed out. I don't know what I'm going to do. And right away, person doing a presentation on validation says, oh, it's okay. It'll be fine. I was like, no. I said, let me start again, hun. And then I started with, I can get it, why you feel stressed out because you've been in school for so long. It's hard to imagine doing something else and you really don't know what you want to do. So, I'm not like, it is hard. Like, you're using your own style and your own inflection. Okay. So I understand, I can imagine why you would feel because now, if you have teenagers at home, you might not want to say, I understand, because there are some teenagers who don't believe that we can possibly understand how they feel. So you might want to change your wording again to, well, no wonder, or something like that, that you feel like they could maybe buy a little bit more. Okay, so Jesse, do you want to give some of these suggestions with the how to validate?
So, using that example of I have a presentation to do and I'm the worst presenter in the world, like I just suck at presentations. So something you could say here is, no wonder you get worried about presentations, you hate presentations. You could say, it makes sense that you're feeling really worried or anxious about your presentations. And then coming in with those 3 becauses. So, because presentations are hard, because every time you do a presentation, it makes you feel really gross or nervous on the inside, because you see other kids do presentations and it seems really easy for them. You can even say something like, because presentations are really nerve-wracking for a lot of people. And then just giving some space for your child to hear that too. So I think taking a pause after you validate an emotion can also be really helpful before we kind of jump to that next part, which is more of the problem solving or offering support in different ways.
Okay. So this is the jumping to fixing it. So my example with my son, right? Oh, it'll be okay. It'll be fine. Don't worry about it. It's no big deal. It's just a 5-minute presentation. That is what we call invalidating, because you're not there. You're not listening. You're not hearing how they're feeling. So it's like when you come home from a day and your partner, your friend, and you're trying to say, oh, what a horrible day I had. And they said, oh, that's no big deal. And you feel like, really? It's annoying, right? So by trying to fix things too fast, we do invalidate the feelings. It's like saying, calm down, it'll be fine, when it's not fine. Their bodies are telling them it's not fine. And so, I'll get to that little message on the chat in a sec. So the other thing is, we give them a message that you better get rid of those emotions ASAP. Not good. erase them. And that's really not the message that we want to give to anybody, right? Like Jesse said, I think at the beginning, emotions are important. They're good. They tell us information. They let us know something's not fair or sad or whatever. I'm just reading this chat. It's not easy. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And so moving them towards, remember, we talked about the elevators. They're talking about it's a way to move them towards success, right? We want to bring the elevator down, then move to fixing things up. Do you want to add anything to that, Jesse, or?
Nothing to that.
Okay, let's go on to the next one.
Great. So, validation doesn't always feel natural to us, especially when we start doing it. And it can feel really uncomfortable. And one of the reasons for that is that in North America, there's this sort of tendency that we don't want to feel what we call bad emotions. But really, there's no such thing as a bad emotions. There are emotions that feel good sometimes. They might not feel great sometimes, but they're usually all helpful in different ways. And we're also, I think, taught a lot throughout our lives that we just want to make everyone feel better as quick as possible. And so a lot of the times what we do is we try and reassure people that things are going to be fine. But for, everyone, adults and kids, there are times when you're feeling things and things really don't feel like they're going to be fine. And when people tell you like, oh, it's going to be okay, it's going to be fine, you might feel like, hey, like you're not really listening to me right now. I don't feel like things are going to be fine, and this is why. And so when we say, and acknowledge that that's okay to feel that way, and it makes sense that someone feels that way, we're not necessarily reinforcing that that feeling is going to come true. We're just saying that it makes sense that someone feels that way. And so, validation, we're not saying that it's okay to behave a certain way. We're not even saying that the thoughts that kids have about themselves sometimes are true. We're just saying, you know what, it's okay to feel the way that you feel. I understand why you feel that way. And then we can bring in the problem solving or the reassurance after that to offer that to support, right? To say, you know what, you feel this way and it makes sense, but you're not alone in feeling that way.
And so the idea is that validation brings the elevator down, but invalidating can actually make it worse and make people more annoyed, right? Yeah. Okay. So another thing that we just wanted to touch on is that you're validating the emotion, not the behavior. Okay. So you're not saying, oh, you feel upset about the presentation. Oh, you don't have to do it. Right. You're saying, I get why you'd be nervous about a presentation because. Okay. Once the emotion's acknowledged and you can calm down, then you can problem solve about the presentation, So it's validating the emotion, problem solving the behavior. So if you use it with a toddler who's just hit their older sibling, you're not saying, oh, you're mad, so it's okay, you hit your sibling. You'd say, I can understand you were angry because, but then you still have to problem solve the behavior and how we can express that in a different way. Okay. Your child may or may not be good or bad at presentations, right? The point is the emotion is there. And then once the emotion comes down, you can then problem solve. Maybe they are having difficulty with presentations, so you can problem solve that. Maybe they're just super nervous and they have a good presentation. How are you going to problem solve that? Okay, so that's kind of a tricky one too, is, are we saying it's okay? We're not saying the behavior is okay. Okay. Okay, so then I think we're just gonna sum it up and then we can see if you guys have any more questions.
Yeah, so I think the last thing we're just going to talk about is just some different things that you can do after you validate. So that's really that support piece. And Adele LaFrance talks about sort of two different types of support. One is more meeting emotional needs, and then one is more practical needs. So when we think about emotional needs, a lot of times we think of this as something like comfort. So for kids, that might be, just some more caring words like, I care for you, I'm here for you. It could be a hug. It could be just a moment with a steffi to calm down, and then even taking space sometimes. And then there are practical ways that we can help support too. So sometimes it might be, you know, redirecting a child back to the thing that they were working on after they've had some time to calm down. It might be helping them problem solve. So, you know, with the presentation example we used, it could be helping them practice their presentation, or even sitting down and going through it together. And so, you know, just really thinking through, you know, can I meet the need here by offering some sort of support? And then here too, when we're thinking about misbehavior, sometimes too, this is where we might bring in a conversation about correcting misbehavior and talking through, you know, what could you do differently next time?
Yeah. And then finally, is a slide about different resources. So if you guys want to, we could leave that up. And if you want to, you can take a quick pick on your phone or whatever works for you. I suppose we could also put the links in the chat if that would be helpful. But those are some of the series from Mental Health Foundations. That's emotion focused family therapy is what that stands for. The caregiver anger video is actually listed here. A way to connect with your child validation is on our YouTube channel. That's actually me giving a little talk about validation. It's about 7 or 8 minutes. And then a book by Adela France. So yeah, see what you think of those. We can leave that up, and then we'll stop the recording. So thanks for the people who are going to listen to the recording, and then we can follow up with some questions.
How do I stop the recording?
I really, I don't know. Let me see. Is there a opposite to how you started?
Sure.
Whoever's the host near the top you should have a stop recording option.
Excellent. There's always someone in the group who can help with these techie things, right?
Let me also,
There.
maybe I'll try stop sharing and
Okay. I think you have the power.
Or at the where it says record at the bottom beside share
Oh.
screen,
Yep.
you should have a stop.
Oh, I don't
Yeah.
see a stop button.
So it
Oh,
says, please
who's the
ask the
host?
host to give you permission to record. So on the record, the zero, like the dot with the circle around it, does it have a stop?
I don't know. It says recording at the stop, but I don't see a stop button.
Maybe if you click it again. If not, we can stop and then maybe people can pop back in. Do you want to try switching host to me, and then I'll see if I can do it?
That sounds good.
I am the host now. Okay. Sorry, guys. There's always some technological fun that happens. Record on this computer, record to the cloud. You're right. It does not say stop recording. That is a drag. Okay. Do people have questions? Just maybe put up your little fake hand on reactions, and then we'll see if maybe those people we can pop out and pop back in perhaps. And if there's no question, then I guess we're good to go. I think there was a general question about things in classrooms. Yes, what I will do is with regards to the slides, if people, when we post the recording, I will put an extra slide. I will put a link to the actual slides in a PDF. Okay, does that sound good? And I'll just try to address the question the best I can about the classroom. situation. I think that there are maybe, if you're talking about after there's been an escalation in a classroom, then I think that there's other things, you know, that might be done. But absolutely, I think validating kids' emotions and saying that was kind of upsetting, right? I understand why you'd be upset about because then they can come down, and then you can talk about how the adults are in charge in those circumstances. There's a process that we go through and those sorts of things. So I hope that kind of touched on what you were getting at.
Hi,
You're
it's
welcome.
Suzanne. Can you hear
Yeah.
me? Oh,
Yep.
good. Okay. I didn't know if talking was on or not. Yeah, I'm just wondering because I've heard that some teachers have some different techniques that they use, but this is a really great one. And it doesn't make a spectacle of anyone in the class in the sense of like, you know, I understand you're upset and the classroom's too loud, but you threw a water bottle, like that type of thing. Like, so I'm just wondering, is this something that's promoted from the region to the teachers, this process of validation and bringing the elevator down and then going into problem solving, which may be private or after the fact, you know, is that something that's promoted?
We absolutely talk about this with teachers, and whenever we can. I've seen some teachers do some excellent validation in many classrooms that I've been in. I was just in one of a couple of weeks ago, actually. Jesse and I were in a classroom, and it was really lovely to see. So absolutely, it's something that lots of teachers use. And, you know, everybody varies in the kind of skills and the kind of different things they use. So we're out there trying to promote different things. So yeah, we hope that we see more and more of this.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I saw just before we go to Becky, I think Becky had her hand up.
Yeah.
There are just some questions about where the actual PDF would be posted, Lisa. Is that on the WRDSB site or somewhere else?
I think that what we will do is we'll put it on the YouTube site. This will likely be posted on the YouTube site. And I can we won't log off until I write down some of the emails that people have shared with us, and I can send you a PDF directly too. Okay. Thanks. And then Becky, sorry to keep you waiting.
No problem. Thank you. My son's just moved to grade 7. He's a lot of school refusal. You know, I hate it. I'm isolated. I don't have any friends. I feel like I'm having the same conversation every day, but I don't feel like I'm giving good advice. Like, I feel like I'm just saying, you know what, right now, that's your job, is to go to school. And I don't feel like I'm validated, but I don't know. I'm a social worker myself. So it's hard because I'm like, I don't know how to validate your feelings. Like, do you have any suggestions?
I think, again, this is actually a great example in terms of school refusal, because, you know, you're not validating, yes, you're not going to school, but you're saying, yeah, I understand why it could be hard, because, you know, you had a fight with a friend, or because you have a presentation that's really scary, or whatever. You know, you can validate that, but you're still going to school, kind of thing, right? Yeah. And so that's the validation of the emotion versus the behavior. That is a tough, especially after the pandemic, it is a tough thing for some kids to return to in-person school or whatever the case may be. So I think that continuing with being, you know, like kids always, when I talk about anxiety and I say, well, the thing is with anxiety, you have to do what you're nervous about. And they don't like that, of course, no one does. But even, you know, keeping that going. And then if you need support, like reach out to the school and see what is going on. I always talk to parents about if there's something going on at home, but sometimes kids, once they get to school, they're okay. Sometimes not, but sometimes that's the way it is. So the school doesn't even realize, right, that there's this issue going on. Maybe that's true, maybe that's not true in this case, but I think communication with the school, the teacher, admin, whatever, is really important, so they understand how hard it is for this kiddo to get to school, right? So that they can.
I know that I've been doing that, and I have a fear of like, oh my gosh, I'm burdening these people too much, or I'm bothering them too much. Like I'm emailing the CYW, the teacher, the VP. I'm like, because he presents, I think, differently at school than how he does to me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I would say that, you know, parents and schools are a team. And I would want to know, you know, at the school if this was going on, so I could understand and be as supportive as I could at school. So I think if you're worried about that, say, I hope I'm not. Sometimes what I do is I say, I hope I'm not like bugging you too much, you know, and often I think people would say, no, this is why I'm here.
Becky,
okay,
it's
thank you very
Suzanne.
much.
Somebody in the chat, as long and as well as my ideas, why your child doesn't want to go to school. Is that because there's no friends?
Yeah, he doesn't have any friends, but then I give him suggestions to, you know, go talk to so-and-so, or you've connected with so-and-so through hockey. Could you not meet with them up at school? But then he refuses to do that, but then says he's lonely in the next sentence.
So I
So-
think that's what's really important is, yeah, the why is important. And then perhaps that can be a conversation with the school, you know, and the other thing I want to mention is you can reach out to community resources as well to better understand. There's assessments that you can get to figure out, you know, is it a learning challenge? Is it an anxiety challenge? Is it a social challenge? So then you can better support, you and the school can better support any kiddo to understand what's better. So that's not a plug for psychological assessment, but I do them. So it's a big part of my career. So I really feel passionate that they're super important. That could be one piece of something you can reach out to do. So I'm just conscious of,
he has a counselor through Horizon that we started
awesome.
in September, October, and then we just made a pediatrician appointment. So
Excellent. Sounds like you're doing a lot of great things. And, you know, connecting with the school is a great idea, connecting with community resources. I think that one of the things I often leave parents with is don't be afraid to reach out, because to me, learning about all these different skills is just like learning how to read or write or do math. They're super important for all of us, no matter how old we are. So we will send out the slides to you guys who put your emails in the chat, and I will also figure out a way to crop this video recording, I hope, and then to put the video on our YouTube channel. But thanks, we love it that all you guys have continued, and we've continued after the pandemic. This came up as an idea during the pandemic, so it stayed. So thanks very much for supporting it and coming out on your lunch and yeah, hearing some of these ideas.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming, everyone.
Yeah.
thank you.
All right, we have lots of emails to jot down. Okay, take care, everybody. Have a great rest of the day.
Take care, everyone.
And Jesse, I think we can go back in the chat, right?
Yes, I'm just
Everybody?